Driving along North Carolina highways, have you ever stopped and thought, gosh, I wish there was a farm nearby that I could stop and visit? Well, I've done this many times, and that's why I'm so excited about a new book called Farm Fresh, North Carolina by Diane Daniel. She'll be our guest on North Carolina Bookwatch next.
Funding for North Carolina Bookwatch is made possible through the financial contributions of viewers like you, who invite you to join them in supporting UNC-TV, and by the North Carolina Humanities Council.
Welcome to North Carolina Bookwatch. I'm D.G. Martin. My guest is Diane Daniel. She's the author and compiler, assembler, visitor, and all compiled in a book called Farm Fresh, North Carolina. And I want to read you the subtitle. It's the go-to guide to great farmers markets, farm stands, farms, apple orchards, U-picks, kids' activities, lodging, dining, choose and cut Christmas trees, vineyards and wineries, and more. That's all part of the title. Diane Daniel, welcome.
Don't forget the and more.
And more, and more, and more, and more. And featuring 20 fresh local recipes. So you traveled all across North Carolina and found the places that people like me could visit if we just are driving along and would like to stop and see a farm.
I did. I drove 23,000 miles in the state of North Carolina. I calculated that's equivalent to 8 trips to California and back. But that just shows how much there is to see in the state. It's just rich with places to visit. A lot of them under the radar, which is one of the things I love about the book.
Well, the way we think about North Carolina is it used to be a farm state, but it's not a farm state anymore, except for big, I don't want to call them industrial farms, but large operations that are managed more like factories than like farms.
Right.
And you discovered that that's not quite right.
Yeah, I mean, it's really a mix. There are certainly those very large farms. I mean, we are very high up in poultry production, turkey production, pork, but also there are a lot of family farms still remaining. And there are a lot of newer farms. A lot of younger people have come in, and also older people, retired or semi-retired, returning and want to farm the land. And a lot of them also are much more using sustainable agricultural practices, so they're not using as many chemicals and pesticides. And so you have this real mix, but there are hundreds of family farms, and in fact, that's the segment of farming in North Carolina that's growing, are the small family farms, which is encouraging.
Well, the other part, so there are these farms out there, but I can't just drive up to a farmhouse and say I'd like to. I guess I could.
You could.
And maybe I'd be welcome, but it wouldn't be polite.
Right, right. And so what the book has is, so like you mentioned, it has all these different categories, and farms themselves are one of the categories. And to me, that's kind of the basis of the book, because a lot of people don't realize that there are so many farms you can visit. Some of them do have regular hours that they'll post. Where some of them have interaction through farm stands, but others you can go right to the farm. And others you make an appointment and you get a tour of the farm. So there's a lot of different ways, but I do say in the book that a lot of the farms, the houses, they live right on their farm, so it's probably not wise just to go to the front door and ask for a tour. But most of them are very, all the ones in the book are open to the public in some way.
Sometime.
That's why they're in there are a lot of farms that are great that aren't in the book because they just don't have that public interaction.
Well, I want you to talk about a couple of the farms first, and one that I bet you'll never forget is one where you got to see an egg laid. Now, you can't promise that to everybody, but can you tell us about that experience in that farm?
Well, that was Fickle Creek Farm in Orange County, just a little north of Chapel Hill. And I use this farm a lot as an example because what I love about this farm, the farmers are Noah Rennells and Ben Bergman, and they started farming on land that had no agriculture at all. So they really started the farm from scratch. And they both have doctorates from NC State in agricultural-minded things. And so they're very, they're very educated. And what's great about them is they have a full-time working farm. They have pigs, they have chickens, they often have cows and sheep, they have produce. and you can also stay there. And as far as I know, it's the only full-time working farm that you can stay on. There are a lot of farms you can stay on, but there might be hobby farms or really not even do that much farming. It's more for the scenery.
So do you come and stay and do you help farm, or do you?
You can. You absolutely can. Some people want to really get down and work. Others, like me, just want to, I'll collect eggs for half an hour. That's enough, thank you. Whereas they're doing it all morning. But when you mentioned the chicken, so I was there collecting eggs, and I just happened to see the egg come right out of the chicken, and it was just so exciting to me. I was jumping up and down, screaming. It was one of those magical moments.
Well, is this a big growing business sector for farms? Visitors, as you've lined it up so we can do this.
It's definitely, it's called agritourism, and agritourism has many forms. Some people hear that word and think that there's not real farming, that it's just tourism, and that, is usually not the case. So it is growing, and I think part of that is that people really want what's called experiences when they're traveling, like experiential travel. They want to go and do things. They want the behind the scenes. So when I go to this farm, I not only want to see, I want to understand how they work, what's happening there, what sort of practices do they use. And they also, Fickle Creek, for example, gives regular tours. They also sell to farmers markets and restaurants. And so all of that is interesting to hear about how they do. And so I think a lot of farms realize, the farmers, especially the old-timer farmers, would say to me, people want to come to my farm, for vacation, or they want to pay to take a tour at my farm. That's crazy. But yes, they do. That's exactly what people want. And so now is the time where, I think farmers, it's a great way for them to make some money, but also just the more you are invested in this, the more you care about local foods, eating healthy, preserving the land. So I think just one trip to a farm can actually have a wide ripple effect on families, especially with children. So yeah, it's a great thing.
Well, farms are only a part of your book, but I want to stick with farms for just a little bit, and you can go off. But what I'd like to take a tour of North Carolina with you, just real quickly, maybe starting in the mountains.
Okay.
And for the purpose of your telling us whether these different regions are different in any respect.
Right.
But mountains have always been sort of a place that draws, people, hippies is not the right word, but people who are well educated, who are just tired of
maybe
life in the city.
Unconventional.
Unconventional is the right word, wonderfully unconventional,
Right.
and want to kind of get off the grid a little
Right.
bit. And do you find that the mountain farms are populated mainly by these kinds of people, or by the old mountain families who've had their farms for 5 generations?
Again, it's really a mix. So when you ask this question, a couple places come to mind right away. So I'm going to mention 2, even though you asked for 1. In the mountains, because in fact the mountains has the most listings in my book of any place. And then the Triangle is next. But 2 places that come to mind, when you mention can you just show up anytime, there's one farm, and I can't remember the county, but it's way out west, like an hour or an hour and a half beyond Asheville. It's called J.W. Mitchell Farms. And it's 10, I think about 10 acres, like tons of produce. Everything is you pick. Everything, from the tomatoes to the okra to whatever berries they have. Everything they have is open for you pickers, which is really, I haven't found anything else like that in the state. And that is really exciting. And so all these people come, and they also do their own picking, and they have a little farm stand, so you can just go there and buy things. But if you want, you can go out there and harvest anything, and I think that is a great
whatever is right, you can go get.
So that's one.
And well, now, excuse me for interrupting you, but do you remember about the owners? Or these?
Sorry, yes. So that is a different kind of. So it's an old-timer farmer, but not to North Carolina. The family actually used to farm in Florida.
Wow. And
the big Hurricane Andrew, that came through, I think, in the 80s. They farmed there, but they also were in the insurance business. So after paying all their claims, they're like, we got to get out of Florida. And they came to North Carolina, and they took over. It was some family land. And, that's an example of people returning to family land. And then they started farming it. It was their family,
from way back. Wow.
And they used to go there to visit, and then they decided to move there, and then they opened up the farm to you pickers. So that's one family. Another one, and these are kind of like a mix of conventional and unconventional. It's called Mountain Farm, And they are in Yancey County, which is near Burnsville, in a community called Silo. So it's about like half an hour to an hour north of Asheville. You take a real curvy road to get there, which is, one of the things I point out in the book is getting there is half the fun a lot of the time. And so,
or it's at least half the memorable experience.
Right. Marilyn and Jerry Cade are the couple who started this farm in the 70s. He's a doctor, she's a nurse, she's mostly tending to the farm now. And they were definitely, kind of unconventional, where they had these conventional jobs in hospitals, but they wanted to live off the land. And so they farmed there, and then in the 90s, they decided to open up their farm to some tourists, to some visitors. And they have, what's wonderful about this place, it's kind of in a way like Fickle Creek. So they do all this farming. They have goats, they have lavender. Those are their two big things. People love lavender and goats.
And buy it, and it's a commercial. You can sell it for.
And they have these lavender festivals. You can go and pick lavender. They sell all these different products that they make. They make them all on the farm. They use the goat milk for body care products. And then the lavender, they have cooking products. And so that is a wonderful place. They have regular hours. They have a store. They have a lavender labyrinth,
wow.
if you can imagine.
And you come and visit. You don't stay there. You don't stay overnight there.
Well, actually, they have a cabin across the street that you can stay in, a cottage. A lot of people use it for weddings. And if you stay in the cottage, then you can go to the farm anytime. You can help milk the goats.
Wow.
So it's this wonderful mix of activities, and they were definitely unconventional couple, farming, especially in the 70s.
Well, now, if you come further east, you start running into this new wine region.
Yeah, I was going to mention, then you cannot talk triad without talking about the wineries.
Yeah, tell us about winery, and tell us how we can visit. Talk about.
Well, North Carolina now has more than 100 wineries, and even more vineyards that supply the wineries that aren't necessarily open to the public. I mean, there's no wine made there; it's just the grapes growing. And so, in the triad, a lot of there's muscadine, the sweet wine, and then there's the European varieties. And the triad mostly has the European varieties that people are more used to: the Chardonnay, the Merlot, that sort of thing. And so there are many wineries there. They almost all have regular hours. They usually give tours. You can ask for a tour. They give tours regularly.
Free samples?
Well, most of them now have a tasting fee, but it's low, $5. And they're often in a beautiful setting. And you go and you're sitting on the patio looking out over the winery. And it's just it's a wonderful way. And they're so close together that you can visit several, like Napa Valley, you can go on a little wine tour, and it's such a fun experience. So I list maybe 20 or 25 in the book, just the ones I think are the best visiting experience.
Well, still moving west.
East?
East.
Okay.
East.
Okay.
You're
Don't
exactly
confuse
right.
me,
I'm so sorry. And where we go, we can go.
Well, we talked about Fickle Creek in the Triangle.
We did, and one of the, just to emphasize, although we think of the Research Triangle area, Raleigh, Durham, Chapel Hill, as being increasingly urban, you say there are more of these agricultural-related places to visit than any place but the mountains.
In the book, I had in Buncombe County, which is where Asheville is, I had about 40 listings, and then the second top number for listings was Orange County, Chapel Hill, which surprised me. So we have a lot of farms in Orange County and Chatham County, and a lot of these some are old timers, and a lot of them are newer, younger people who've come because it sort of builds on itself. And Carolina Central Community College in Pittsboro, I hope I have the name right, has a very popular sustainable agriculture program. They now have a cooking program that's all about cooking natural organic food. So it all builds. We have all these restaurants that are classified as farm to table, so they get most of their ingredients from farms. And we have very lively farmers markets. The Carrboro Farmers Market is looked at in the nation as one of the leading farmers markets.
Well.
And one of the special things about that market is, all the markets in my book are what are called producer markets. So they're the ones where all the farmers there grow what they sell at the market. And so you know that you're getting what the farmer has and not from another outside source. And so Carrboro has a 50-mile radius. So at that market, all the farmers must be from within 50 miles, and they have almost 100 vendors, and they are all selling what only selling what they grow, only local.
Well, there's much more going on. That if we had to pick a region of agriculture in the state, it would be in the eastern North Carolina area where there are these large farms.
Right.
How does eastern North Carolina stack up with the kinds of farms, the small farms that you talk about,
well,
where you can visit?
There are definitely fewer, but there's still quite a lot of options, and those are growing as well. And one of the farms that comes to mind, which is on the coast, is called Indigo Farms, and this is in Brunswick County, very close to the South Carolina border, near Holden Beach, Sunset Beach. And they're one of the few certified organic farms on the eastern North Carolina. They don't have so many certified organic ones. And what's nice about that farm is they have the farm, 6th generation farmer, Sam Bellamy, runs the farm, and now his children are helping to run it. They have a farm stand, actually a store. They have a nursery. They also run a nursery. They have an ice cream shop. It's always a nice bonus in the summer. And the farm starts right behind the store, and you can see some of the animals. And they do a lot of things in the fall where they have, things for kids like a hay bale maze, and they have they raise heritage turkeys, so older breed turkeys that they sell. And so it's just a wonderful visiting experience,
well,
and they have regular hours.
If you're at the beach for one of those days where you
Yes.
Have done all the things that you can
There's
do.
a great farm stand near there too called Holden Brothers, and they have you-pick tomatoes, which I always think is fun. Because you think of you-pick as berries, blueberries and strawberries, but it's fun to do other pickings as well.
Well, I pushed you to talk about farms and a little bit about wineries and the associated grape orchards, I guess. But talk about the other things that are happening in North Carolina in these agriculture-related activities, like the restaurant. Did you find some restaurants that you really liked that serve the local?
I mean, I think the restaurant movement is so exciting what's happening. Like in Durham, for instance, we have Farmhand Foods, which runs a food truck, and it's all locally sourced meat. And so there's just all these different ways, the food truck business is booming as well. There's all these ways, and that if a restaurant is getting a lot of products straight from farmers, that it's quality food, because it costs a little more, it takes more time. I mean, Lantern in Chapel Hill is a very famous one. Andrea Rusing just won the James Beard Award. She was really on the forefront of working with farmers way back when. And there's just so many more people involved in interested in this. It's just really exciting to see what's happened here. There's also this 10% campaign that a group in the state is doing, where they're trying to get people to spend 10% of their money on local food. So it's just you can't escape it, and you shouldn't. It's wonderful what's happening.
Well, I'd love to talk about what's in your book. But one of the things that fascinates me is the attraction of the book as a travel book rather than a sort of farm fresh book.
Yes.
And what I want you to do, if you will, is to think about your background as a travel writer and how that prepared you, or if you had to make some adjustments in writing this kind of book. What was it like to be a seasoned writer with this kind of assignment?
Well, it very much prepared me for this book, because I would say I write about two things the most. I write about a lot of different things, but travel and environmental stories, like hard environmental stories. And the way I've always approached travel, what I say on my website is preservation travel, that I kind of coined, but what it is to me, preservation travel is travel that preserves communities, buildings, attractions, people.
Well, I just want to emphasize, so we started with the talk about agritourism, and you have a different term that maybe describes the same activities but emphasizes a little bit different. So,
and I mean, really what this Farm Fresh North Carolina preserves land, preserves communities, preserves farms. So, it's all about taking care of what's already there and nurturing what's there and exploring what's there. And, I don't knock Disney World. I think Disney World has a place, and I love Disney World occasionally, once every 20 years. But there's so much out there that is authentic, that's real, that's low price, that's healthy, and as a way of travel. So I've always approached travel as someone who wants to go to off the beaten path places explore places, really see communities. I love communities that are really trying to pull together and make something of themselves, that don't have a lot of money. That's just my interest. And I think that's often what farms do. They don't have a lot of money. They're just trying to say, this is what we do, come enjoy it. And so as a way of travel, that's what I love about the book. A lot of the places in the book are under the radar. You know, people have said to me, one person said to me at a book signing of all things, well, I didn't buy the book because I can get all that online. I said, actually you can't. You know, you'd be hard pressed to find all this online.
Well, just to challenge you a little bit on that, one of the exciting things that you not only inspired me to go visit all the places that you've listed, but you've inspired me to go kind of rummage around on my own a little bit.
Great.
To go out and find the place that maybe you missed, or it's or I find it on my own. There is a lot of satisfaction.
Right.
So be cheerful in your inspirational qualities for those of us who would get off the book.
Yeah.
But I want
and let me know if you find a
yeah,
place
we'll do
I
that.
missed.
No, of course. I doubt if we
I'll
will,
put it in the
because
next
you've really
edition.
covered the waterfront. But there are always new places popping up, and
Definitely, yeah, especially in the last year.
But I want you to now to put on your expert's hat again, and not your inspirer's hat. And I'm the guy who wants. I don't even want to do the work of sorting through your book and picking out my places. I want you to sort of. I want you to be the tour guide, and here I am.
love being a tour guide.
And I've got 3 days, and I want take me places. So I know this is not a fair question because you're not prepared for it.
Totally unfair, DG.
But
Actually, I just wrote an article for Blue Ridge Country Magazine that comes out in a month, and I did exactly that, and I did it in the mountains. And so what I did is I prepared a road trip for people.
Well, take us on that just briefly. We haven't got much time.
Okay,
Just,
let's see if I can remember it. But I started in Asheville, because that's the place to start, and we started with lunch at Laurie's Cafe in downtown
I love
Asheville.
this. Okay,
Totally locally sourced, good prices. And then I took you to Cloud9 Farm lodging cabins where you can stay on a farm overnight.
spend the night there.
Yes.
And what am I doing? Will they feed me supper, or do I have to?
No,
you
you're
got it?
getting the food from Laurie's.
Okay, bring it. Okay.
And then you can help gather eggs in the morning,
have
and they'll
to-
bring
and
you
to
eggs in
scramble
the
the
morning.
eggs
yes.
that you-
yes.
Cloud9. Okay.
And then I'm taking you to Hickory Nut Gap Farms. You are putting me on the spot. Also in Buncombe County, which is a very well-known farm for sustainable meat. They had a farm store. One of the things they sell in their farm store, along with their own products, is Imladris jam. So then I'm taking you to the farm that makes the jam, which is a little bit up the road. You can have a tour of that farm and a jam tasting.
Oh man.
And then that night, you stay at a winery. You stay in Banner Elk at Banner Elk Winery. Maybe you go to Mountain Farm along the way. I'm not sure, but we already talked about Mountain Farm. Then you're going to go to Boone.
So I spend the night in a winery.
Yeah. So you can drink and
what do I
not
get
have
for
to
breakfast?
drive.
Not
Wine.
wine.
No. Well, it's also a blueberry farm, so you probably get
wow,
blueberry
okay,
pancakes.
okay.
Yeah, and then you're fueled up to get to Boone just in time for the Watauga County Farmers Market in downtown Boone.
Which would be at what day?
Which is Saturday.
On a Saturday.
Yes.
Okay.
And that is a wonderful farmers market, and so you have fun at that market, and then you go to Apple Hill Farm a couple hours later. You get a tour of an alpaca farm. We haven't talked about alpacas. They're
We
one of
don't
my
have time,
favorite
but you
things.
do read the book. There's a lot
So-
about alpacas there.
So how's that for a little road trip?
Winding up, where did I spend the night Saturday night?
Saturday night, you spend the night at Mast Farm Inn.
Oh, I know that place, and that's
Okay.
great. This
And
is a
that-
great,
yeah.
now this is what I love. And so we're going into business after you stop farming.
Yes, I would love to
these
be a
kinds
tour
of-
guide. I love
These
doing
kinds
that.
of tours. This is really terrific. Now, what are you going to, you're going to continue to write your travel pieces. Are you going to do another book for us? You got an idea?
It's under development,
Under
as
development.
they say,
Can't talk
DG.
about that.
No.
What, getting out of the farm places and into your travel writers, what's, from your travel writing experience recently, what's an underappreciated place that some of us could afford to go?
Funny you should ask. Tomorrow I'm going to Saxapahaw, which is in Alamance County, which is next to Orange County. I'm doing a story for the Washington Post travel section on Saxapahaw, which has a farmer's market, a winery, you can canoe on the Haw River, 2 new restaurants, and a performing space. So,
Wow, close.
what more, and most people don't, there are definitely core people who, yeah, I've been there, 20 times. Most people don't know where it is or have heard of it and thought, oh yeah, I've been meaning to go. Go to Saxapahaw. It's the most awesome place.
Well,
yeah.
what a treat. Thanks for this book. Thanks for
Thank
telling
you,
us about
DG. Appreciate
all
it.
of these places that we can visit, and then designing a few tours for us to appreciate other places in
Get
North
out and
Carolina.
go.
Well, I'm ready to, we got to
Let's
stop
go.
this. Let's go. Well, thanks to Diane Daniel. Thanks to her for her book, Farm Fresh North Carolina, and for getting us all excited about not only the book, but also the opportunities for us to explore and go a little bit more deeper into our wonderful state. Now, I hope that you'll join me next week, and I'll introduce you to another one of North Carolina's great writers. See you then.
Funding for North Carolina Bookwatch is made possible through the financial contributions of viewers like you, who invite you to join them in supporting UNC TV, and by the North Carolina Humanities Council.